Morning everybody, I'm Mama Baird and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm happy to have you. And today I'm going to be doing something a little different on my channel. I'm going to be doing a day in the life of, not really day in the life of, just kind of like day in the cooking of. So today's Wednesday and I'm going to be cooking most of my meals today. So I thought I'd bring you along and kind of show you guys what I cook throughout the day for me and my family. So this morning to start off, we're going to make a strata. So let me show you what I got. Alright, so for those of you who don't know what a strata is, it's just bread with eggs and milk, kind of like a French toast casserole, but you can use any kind of bread and you can put literally anything in it. It's a very versatile recipe. If you got bread, you got eggs, you got milk, you can make this. First thing I'm going to do is cook up some sausage. Alright, this is just regular pork sausage, nothing fancy. Sorry if you can hear my fire in the background. Gotta give it the old sniff test, you know. So this is bread. I don't really know what kind it is. It all looks the same from Panera Bread on the outside. So I'm going to just use half of this loaf. Oh, that looks so good. Some kind of white bread, maybe a sourdough. Could just be plain white. It smells good though. I have an extra stick of butter here, or an extra container, or not a container, an extra sleeve of just empty butter, but it's got butter left in it. So I'm going to use this to coat my pan, just so I can use the last of it and don't have to worry about wasting it. Okay guys, just cut up an onion here. I don't know if I'm going to use this whole thing. Now with the ends and these extra skins, I just keep them in a Target bag in my freezer. So that way whenever I make broth, because this still has a lot of flavor in these skins, we just don't want to chop them up and eat them. They add great flavor to the broths. So if you have any extra veggie ends, skins, anything like that. Whenever you're browning meat, you don't just want to cook it till it's brown. You know, you really want browned bits and pieces on there. So that's almost done. I'm going to let that get a little more color while we dice up our onion. I always like to cut it in half and then cut it along the strips. And remember, whenever you're holding knives, you want to pinch the blade. You don't want to have your finger out like this because it makes it really hard to cut and it's wobbly. So pinch the blade. That gives you way more control. That makes the knife go where you want to go, not where it wants to go. So you got your claw. Go down. And there's still good bits of onion on that. Not that I want to eat, but I'll put it in my bag and we'll save it for stock. Alright, this is starting to get some good color to it. I'm going to drain this. Alright, got all of our grease out. Now since we still have this in here, I'm just going to add the onion to the pork grease and use it to cook it. And then I have some peppers that were looking kind of sad, so I just diced them up so I can add them to things as I go. So I'm going to add peppers to that. And then these extra onions I'm going to put in with these peppers. Because I usually always cook peppers and onions together. They have so much flavor when they're mixed together, so I'm going to do that. And there's peppers and onions for another meal. I have a bunch of farm fresh eggs here that I got from my chickens. And I kind of just got a scrap bowl here that I take out to the goats and the chickens. So the eggshells are going to go in there. Alright, so that's 6. Let's do 8 eggs. You could totally make this big or smaller, depending on your family, depending if you want leftovers. And then I'm going to do a cup of milk roughly. Okay, I just got a garlic clove. It's a big one, so I'm going to cut this in half. Garlic press is probably my favorite way to do garlic. So let's stir that up. We got our garlic in there now. And now I also have this big bag of kale. So I'm just going to kind of rough chop this up a little bit. My family does not like big pieces of kale. I'm trying to get us to eat better and eat healthier. Now I haven't seasoned this yet, so I'm going to do a little bit of kosher salt for these veggies. I'm also going to put some in the eggs. Mix this up. Alright. Eggs, milk, check. Bread, check. Sausage. So I'm just going to sprinkle the sausage over here. I don't know if I'm going to use all of it. I'm going to save a little bit for breakfast tomorrow. And then our kale, onion, pepper mixture. And now the eggs. No, I might do a couple more eggs. Does this look dry to you guys? Looks a little dry to me. So let's do some more eggs. So sometimes it takes a little experimenting. As you can see, I don't always get it right on the first try. But the important thing is to notice that it needs more and to fix it before it goes in. So you can totally make this a sweet version. You know, do like bananas or raisins with cinnamon and sugar and kind of make like a French toast casserole. It's a good way to use up extra bread if you have it and you need to start using it. All right, that looks good to me. And I got some Colby Jack cheese here. So I forgot that I'm trying to use up these roasted red pepper strips. So I'm going to add some of these on top. Alright guys, there she is, final product. So we're going to wait for this oven to get up to 350 and then we're going to put it in for probably about 30 minutes. And there is our beautiful sausage, pepper, kale, strata. We used up a bunch of ingredients from our pantry, made a nice hearty breakfast for everybody. Alright, stay tuned for lunchtime. Alright, so we're going to be making some cheeseburger quesadillas for lunch. I had this leftover taco meat I had in my freezer, so I pulled it out and we're going to doctor this up to taste like a cheeseburger. And every time I go to open these quart Ziploc bags, they break on me. Does this happen to anybody else? It's so frustrating. So anyway, I'm going to use about half of this. Just going to put it in a microwavable safe bowl. And I'm going to zap this for about 1 minute. There we go. It's all nice and loosened up. Not too hot, but enough to start adding. I have this herb mustard that I am trying to use up. So I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of this herb mustard. Then I have some homemade ketchup. I'm going to put in, I'm kind of just eyeballing, probably about a quarter of a cup I'm going to put in there. And then I have some homemade dill relish. husband really prefers sweet relish over the dill, so I'm trying to use this up in different ways. I'm gonna add about a 1/4 cup of relish to it. Just eyeball whatever you think sounds good. If this was just for me and not for the children, I would add in chopped raw onion as well, but didn't feel like going through all that today, so we're just going to do the basics. So you want to stir that around, make sure it's really good, and then you're going to taste it for seasoning, and it tasted good to me, so let's start assembling. I'm going to put 1 tortilla down in our skillet just to get it warmed up. You want your heat on about a 6 to a 7 for a gas stove, medium-high heat. I like to get them toast up on each side just to get them warm. And then the cheese I'm going to add is Colby Jack cheddar cheese. I like to buy this in bulk from Costco and then shred it all at once, so I just keep cheese in a giant bowl in the fridge. Just gonna put enough around. I didn't really measure. It's probably maybe half a cup of cheese total in each quesadilla. Put some cheese down, and then you're gonna put your filling on top. Just spread it around evenly. A little extra sprinklage of cheese on top there. Make sure she's nice and gooey. You're gonna put the other tortilla on top. Like to press it down a little bit, give it a flip. Alright, that turned out pretty good. And as you can see, it's getting nice and melty, nice and gooey. That's what we're looking for. And then I'm just gonna make 1 more of these, and that'll get split up between the 3 kids. Alright, and then I'm gonna cut this in half, and then cut each half into thirds, so I'm gonna get 6 pieces per quesadilla. Oh, look at that melted, yeah. Oh, I see someone snagging a piece there. I don't know why. And then we have their final plate, which was those cheeseburger quesadillas, some canned carrots, and then canned pears that I did over the summer. And they had a quick and simple lunch, and their one's taken off with it. Now for dinner, I'm going to be making shepherd's pie. Well, it's actually technically cottage pie because it has ground beef instead of lamb. But I'm going to be using these frozen onions I have from Winco. Otherwise, you would just use 1 whole onion. And then I'm also going to be using a mixed vegetable bag. You could do peas and carrots though if you don't want the green beans and corn in there, which is more traditional. Just putting down some bacon grease so I can cook these onions. You're just going to cook them till they're translucent, so about maybe 5 minutes. Mine, I gotta unfreeze, so mine will take about 10 minutes. So these are looking pretty good. You can see some color on them a little bit. You don't want them to cook down too much because we're going to be adding our meat mixture, which I have 2 pounds of ground beef here. I am making a double recipe. My motto is, if you're doing the work, might as well do it once and get twice the product. So I am making 1 for dinner and 1 for the freezer. So you're just going to mash up all your meat. I'm going to add a little salt to that and some pepper. Now I'm going to be keeping the grease in there because I'm going to use that to make a roux, which is what's going to thicken this up. So I'm keeping that grease in there, and I'm adding a cup of flour. I'm doing half white flour, half wheat flour, because that's just my basic flour mixture I keep on hand. I use it for everything, so you can just use whatever flour you usually use. You're going to stir all this in, and you're going to let this cook for about a minute. You want to make sure you cook that raw flour taste out. And at this point, I'm going to be adding a couple of pints of some leftover pot roast gravy I have from when I made the pot roast in the Instant Pot. If you haven't seen that video yet, I will link that above. I just had 4 of these pints that I put into my freezer, and I need to use them up. This seemed like a good way to do that. So I'm going to add 2 of those. These have onions and mushrooms in it. My gravy was cooked with red wine, so these have a lot of flavor, and I did not want them to go to waste. So I just stuck those in the freezer, and now is the perfect opportunity to use them. I also have some leftover beef broth I just had in my fridge, or it could be chicken broth. I'm actually not too sure, but that's the beauty of the pantry. You cook whatever you got. So I'm just tossing that in there. That was just a glob of some grease on top. It'll melt down in there. You want this nice and thick and bubbly. That flour will really help thicken that sauce up. And then I just added my whole bag of mixed vegetables. And I'm giving it a try, seeing if it needs any additional flavor. Needs a little bit more salt. You always want to season and then taste your food before you finish it. Taste as you cook. Make sure everything is seasoned and tastes delicious. So we're just going to scoop into our casserole dish. I'm going to fill it about halfway full with the beef gravy mixture. Then I'm going to top them with some extra mashed potatoes I had. These are in the fridge. I threw them into Chef Mike, which is the microwave, for a couple of minutes just to loosen them up. I also made these in my Instant Pot for my quick and easy no drain method. If you haven't seen that video, I can link that above. It's super easy just to throw them in there and make a bunch to have leftovers. And then you can create dishes like this without the extra work. This is going to go into a 350-degree oven and I cook it for about 45 minutes. Now I'm going to scoop the remaining meat mixture into a 9x13 pan. Put the last of the mashed potatoes on there. I wish I would have left a little bit more of the mashed potatoes for this. I put a lot on my first one, but that's okay. You just got it nice and stretched out. And then I have my freezer safe lid that I put on there, and that's going in my freezer. So the next time I'm low on time, I can pull that out of the freezer and we can have dinner. Now I got this Jiffy pie mix from the food bank that I have never tried before, so I thought I would give it a go and whip up a strawberry rhubarb pie with some of the filling I had canned this summer. So I just dumped one of the packages in there. The box said it was good for 2 9-inch pie crusts, so I'm going to be adding the water to it and try and make 2 pie crusts. It called for 3 tablespoons of ice cold water, and then I decided that it needed another one. And I'm just slowly mixing with a fork till it gets incorporated into a ball. You don't want to overmix pie dough because it will become tough on you. And no one likes a tough pie. We want that flaky. And then I ended up adding one more. And that was just enough, so 5 tablespoons total to bring this pie dough together. Now I'm just kind of mixing it around, getting the last bit of crumbles out of the bottom of the pan so you don't have a dry spot. You just want to gently knead it all together. Don't want to overwork it though. Just enough till it forms a ball. Now I told you this said that it was enough for 2, but spoiler alert, it was not. So I break it up and I attempt to roll it out and try and fit it, but I'm going to save you guys the trouble of seeing me struggle with that. And know that I just ended up making a second pie crust for the top layer. I'm just rolling it. I like to put a little flour down, roll it back and forth, then pick it up and move it around just to make sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom to the counter. So you want to pick it up and rotate it regularly. And then a good way to test to make sure that it'll fit is to take your container and flip it upside down over your rolled out pie dough, and that'll let you know if you have enough to fill your dish. I like to fold it in half and then fold it in half again to make kind of like a little book, and then you put that right in the middle and then open it up and you should be enough to cover your pie. Or you could roll it up on your rolling pin and then unroll it on top. People do that as well. So whatever's easiest for you to get the dough to this pie dish. Now I'm just pulling some extra off the sides and adding it to the center. This doesn't have to be perfect. So we're gonna par bake this shell, and par bake means you're going to partially bake it. So that means I'm gonna put some foil on there and we're gonna just kind of put it in the oven for a couple minutes to get it crisp up, because I like a nice crispy bottom. So you're gonna pour your dried beans. I have a designated bean par baking jar. So you're just gonna put in there, push it around, make sure all your crust is covered, because you're not wanting to brown anything at all. You're just wanting to kind of get that bottom cooked a little bit. If I have pre-made filling, this is what I like to do to my pies to make sure that it's nice and crispy. So as you can see, we didn't bake it too long, just for about 10 minutes to get it a little crispy, get it started. And then I'm going to add 1 quart of my homemade strawberry rhubarb pie filling. And then after spreading it around a bit, it just wasn't quite full enough for me, so I went and grabbed another pint. And so I added 1 quart and 1 pint to this pie. And then I made another pie crust with 1 more box of that Jiffy pie crust. We're just going to put that on top. And then whenever you're doing your pie, you're going to take your top layer and tuck it underneath your bottom layer. You don't just want it kind of pushed on top. You want it to be all the way under, or else it'll seep out the sides. And nobody wants any seepage. So you're just going around, tuck it under till you get a nice lip forming. And then I'm just going to do a simple crimp on it, where you take 2 fingers and 2 fingers on one hand and 1 finger on the other, and you push your single finger into your 2 fingers. So you make a little crimp, like so. Like that. And it's just a super simple, quick pie crust decoration you can do. And then I'm going to do an egg wash on mine. I think it adds a really nice color. I like to egg wash all my pastries. And then I have this sanding sugar. I don't know how to say it. Demura sugar. We're going to cut some slits in it for vintage. And we're going to let that bake. Alright, our shepherd's pie is done. Oh my goodness, look at that bubblage. You want to get your potatoes kind of fluffy, so that way when they're in the oven, they'll get crispy on top. Alright, and then our pie is done. So you can see mine kind of split on top here, but hey, looks pretty darn good to me. That egg wash really helps get a nice golden color.
Alright everybody, so that's just a typical day in Mama Baird's cooking life. We made that strata for breakfast, and remember that's something that you could add any kind of stuff you have in your fridge to it. You could make it into a sweet version, do kind of like a French toast casserole. Then we made cheeseburger quesadillas for lunch. That's just a good way to use up any kind of leftover meat. The kids really enjoyed it. It was super fast for me, so I enjoyed it as well. And then dinner, we had that shepherd's pie. I used the leftover gravy from my Instant Pot that I made the other day, and I just stuck that all in the freezer, so I thawed that beforehand. If you don't have that extra gravy, you can always use beef broth. And then one thing I like to do to get ahead of the game is to make an extra for the freezer. So as you saw, I made 2 different shepherd's pies, one for the dinner and then one for the freezer. So that's a good way to get ahead and just kind of, if you're cooking already, might as well make that second one to save yourself some trouble later on. Alright, make sure you guys leave me any kind of feedback. Did you like that? Did you like the overview during the cooking? We're kind of experimenting with our filming a little bit, so I appreciate any feedback. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time on Mama Baird's.